anything that we can relate to in today's world that we're living in right now is that we need revival. We need a movement of God. It just seems like every day we look on the news, we look outside, and it's just evil itself is becoming an idol. It's becoming idolized. It's becoming protected. And honestly, there's nothing we can do about it. Let's face the facts. We need God. We need the power of His Son. We need revival that only God can provide. Man, do we need it now. And sometimes you just have to praise, you have to pray, and hope in Him. But anyways, let's dive into this message. Today we're talking about Mephibosheth and his story of how he goes from a prince to a disabled man, to a disabled boy, and he lives in this place called Lodabar. And the Bible illustrates Lodabar as just the low of the low of the low. Like, this is where the lowest of the society pole lives. This is where the scum and just the people that you wouldn't even want to see, like, look at when you're walking down the street. This is where they live. Disease, disabilities, can't work, provide nothing to society. And that's what Lodabar was. Lodabar literally means, the name of it translates to a place of no words, no pasture, no thing. It's just a place of nothingness. Well, so Mephibosheth is actually a prince, and he's in line to be the next king. Well, a lot happens to him. He loses a lot very fast. His world gets flipped upside down. His life changes and goes 180 real quick. He lost his dad and his grandfather in a battle, in a war, when he was only 5 years old. And scared that something was going to, like, that opposing kingdom was going to come in and just slay everybody, his nurse, his caretaker, took him and fled, scared for his life that Mephibosheth was going to be slayed and killed, as family fights for power, as that other kingdom comes in and battles for power, that he would just be caught in the middle of it, and he wouldn't survive. He didn't stand a chance. So his nurse and his caretaker fled with him. Well, when she took off running with him, she dropped him. Can you imagine, like, fleeing with the baby, trying to protect the baby, and then you be the person who hurts them? Well, that's what happened. His nurse dropped him, and when that happened, he became disabled. He became useless in the eye of the kingdom, that he couldn't provide anything anymore. So in just an instant, he went from prince, future king, to disabled, to nothing, to useless, real quick. And we're going to dive into that, but there's 3 points that I want to hit tonight, and the first point that I want to hit right now. Number 1, the status life gives you does not alter the significance within you. I don't know if you can read that, but I've written them on the board. The status life gives you does not alter the significance within you. Your status does not determine your worth. Those people in Lodabar, they might have felt like nothing. They might have felt like they weren't worth anything. But in God's eyes, they never lost anything. They never lost their value. Mephibosheth never lost any value. I'm sure you've heard the analogy. Several people have used it in all kinds of different speeches and talks. But if you take a $100 bill and you crumble it up and you put it on the ground, you stomp on it, you soak it in water, you throw it in the mud, it's still worth $100. You can still take that to a bank and it's worth $100, no matter how dirty, no matter how torn, no matter how beat up. It's still worth $100. And it's the same with you. I don't know what you've been through. You've probably been through hell like most of us. Believe me, we've been through it. But you haven't lost any of your fall into that enemy's lie that God loves you any less because of what you've been through. Point number 2 I want to make is Lo-Debar may be your location, but it's not your final destination. See, when Mephibosheth was living in Lo-Debar, he thought that was it. Everyone who lived in Lo-Debar lived as low as they did because they thought that was it. And you, if you can say, I'm in Lo-Debar, I'm in that kind of place, I'm in that headspace, I'm in that community, that's where I'm at. There's something you need to do right now. You need to stop inviting other things. You need to stop inviting people into Lo-Debar because you're not staying there. Mephibosheth wasn't staying there. Nobody who goes into Lo-Debar is staying there. That's not your final destination. It may be your current location, but it's not your final destination. Why? Because there was a man that went to the cross and died for you to make sure of it. To make sure that you didn't have to stay there. See, Mephibosheth got very comfortable in Lo-Debar. He got very comfortable in his valley. And why not? He's surrounded by others who have the same stories as him, who have similar stories of unfairness, of an unfair God, of life being unfair to them. God's unfair. God is not fair. It is not fair for him to go from a prince to disabled. I'm sure he told himself that all the time. That's not fair, God. How do I go from that to this? And everybody there saying the same thing. But something happens. Something happens to him while he's in Lo-Debar. And I want you to hear this. When God calls you, you have to respond. I'm sure you've heard that the very first gift God gave you was free will. And maybe you're stuck in Lo-Debar because you haven't responded. Maybe you've been feeling the tug. God's been pushing you to get out of there for a long time now, but you're still there because you haven't responded. You must respond. See, so what happened was when Mephibosheth went into Lo-Debar and stayed there and lived there for as long as he did, the new king, King David, knew what had happened to him, knew what happened to his grandfather, knew what happened to his grandfather. And he had been trying to track him down. He'd been trying to find Mephibosheth. And when he found out that he was living in Lo-Debar, he said no. And he sent after Mephibosheth. He sent a servant to go get him out. He sent for him to come to the royal palace. But here's the thing. Mephibosheth had to make a decision in that moment. He had to choose to get up and leave. How many of you have had the opportunity to leave your current situation, but haven't because it was too comfortable? You've got a community around you telling you, you're just like us. God's unfair. Life's unfair. Just stay. Don't go out there and get hurt again. But you have to respond. You have to make the decision to get up and get out. The third point, last one. Your infirmity is not your identity, but it can become your place of authority. I want you to see what happens as we wrap up the story of Mephibosheth and the interaction between him and King David after Mephibosheth has made the effort and agreement to get out of Lo-Debar and head to the palace. Mephibosheth was never called by his name. He was always called by his disability. While in Lo-Debar, he never heard his own name. No one ever called him Mephibosheth. People called him disabled, broken, torn, prince. They called him prince as a mockery, mocking him that he had once been something and now he's nothing. But not once was he ever called by his name. So when he gets to King David does something crazy. He calls him by his name. He says, Mephibosheth, I promise you I will restore everything that was lost to you. I will give you a seat at the royal table and you will eat with me. 2 Samuel 9, 7 through 8. I wrote it on the board. Listen here, listen close. Don't be afraid, David said to him, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. Mephibosheth bowed and said, this was his response to that, what is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me? He called himself a dead dog. He didn't call him, Mephibosheth didn't even acknowledge his own name. Just simply someone calling him by name made him drop to his knees and bow. Mephibosheth saw himself as a dead dog because he allowed his label to become his name. He didn't even know his own name. All he knew was disabled, broken, nothing, useless. Instead, use your platform as authority because that's why it's there. That's why you've gone through it. Not for you to be broken by it and for it to become your name, but for it to become your platform of authority. Why? Because when you sit at the king's name, time out, sorry. My YouTube just shut off. Oh, that's not good. Hold on, sorry guys, time out. Wow. Alright, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. I don't want the people on YouTube to miss this because this is a hit. Alright. So let's backtrack a little bit. Backtrack. Got off topic. Alright. So he has that interaction with King David. He promised him kindness. Promises him a place at the seat, right? Just by him, Mephibosheth, simply being called by his name, he bowed. Because he's so used to being called disabled, useless, broken. He allowed his label to become his name. Instead, you need to use that as your platform of authority. That's why God put you through it. That's why you're still here. That's why you went through it. Is for that to become your platform of authority and nothing less. And why is that? Because people are forced to use your name when you sit at the king's table. Yes, you were an addict. Yes, you were homeless. Yes, you were broken. Yes, you were robbed. But you made it out. I made it out. Let me show you how you can too. That's how you use that as a platform of authority. When you're called to sit at the king's table, people must use your name. They have to. You can't walk up to a king at his table and call him by his flaw. Now I want you to see the kicker. This is the kicker right here. Mephibosheth, his name, the thing that he was scared of, the thing that he didn't even know because he allowed his label to become his name. The word Mephibosheth literally translates to the destroyer of shame. His own name means the destroyer of shame. God used the very thing that brought him shame and hurt to grant him authority. So he can sit now at the king's table and say, I am Mephibosheth, destroyer of shame. No matter what the world called him, what Lodabar called him, God called him by his name. I don't know what the world calls you. I don't know what names you've heard yourself called by others, by the world, by culture, by your community. But God doesn't know you as a label. He will call you by name. He called Mephibosheth by his name. He will call you by yours. I love you guys. I hope you got something out of that. That's a really good. I love the story of Mephibosheth, and I'm so happy to have been able to share it with you guys. If you're on YouTube, I'm sorry for the glitch, but I wanted you to get that end part because that was the kicker. I love y'all so much. A couple more things I want to throw in there before I end the YouTube video is you'll see on the fan shelf we got our first piece on here. So if you want to see something on the fan shelf, again, DM me on Instagram and I will figure out how to get in contact with you, how to get that sent, and we will talk about it one-on-one. Other than that, guys, I just really appreciate you tuning in. Really, it means the world to me. I'm humbled by it. If you feel the need to give, all giving is done on Venmo. Just simply search Midnight Church and you will find our church's account on Venmo. That's the only way I have set up for that. But as always, merchandise is in the bio. Go buy yourself a shirt. Go look good. Go flaunt us around. Alright? Go flaunt Midnight Church around. And then send us pictures, video, whatever you'd like to get posted on the social media channels and pages. Thank y'all so much. God bless to you.